Warning: this video contains a whole lot of yapping. If you are sensitive to yapping, please click off this video because this is a huge yap session. You have been warned.
Disclaimer: all of the things I say in this video are my opinions. Please be respectable and understand that I may have a different point of view than you do. Hey guys, today we are going to talk about Piggy fan games. This is a video I wanted to make for a long time now, since I believe I have some very strong opinions about fan games that I wanted to get across. Ever since those early days of Piggy back in 2020, creators left and right started making their own games that correlated with Piggy. Games that were made for fun, or helped shape a unique story that was based off the elements from the main game. I've played a lot of fan games over the years. I still remember those Piggy Extreme games, or those raid games, and since then, I've formed a lot of opinions on fan games. Opinions that I feel like if developers of these fan games took the time to implement, it would make them a little bit more interesting, and even fun. At least in my eyes. I wanted to lay out all of the pet peeves I have with fan games, such as personally stress-inducing factors, or just how dull some of these fan games can be due to repetition. I even wrote a script for this video, which I never do since I tend to freestyle things. Well, enough yapping. These are my thoughts on Piggy fan games.
Oh my god. No!
Oh my god. Whoa. Well, this is the place that Georgie Piggy was last seen. What was that sound? Recognize that? That is the intro cutscene to the first chapter of the main Piggy game, House. A chapter that a lot of fan games do and take into their own interpretation. If I had a nickel for every single time I've played a fan game where their first chapter was House and it had a similar intro cutscene to the main game, I would have been able to fully fund the Mr. P plushie. It would have just been me. I would have bought all 1,000 of them to get it fully funded. You can thank me later, but it's only a fictional scenario, unfortunately. My point is that Piggy fan games tend to get repetitive with the same old concept. The amount of fan games out there where the whole story/premise is just a rewritten version of the pre-existing Piggy story with the pre-existing maps that are modified with different decorations, wall textures, etc. is too many. Games like Piggy the Result of Isolation, Piggy the Insane series, Piggy Rebooted, and don't even get me started with Piggy the Hidden Text. All of these games, whether they follow the same chapter order of the main game or not, use the same maps from the main Piggy game. Put a couple decorations here and there, retexture the walls, maybe add a new room or two, and call it their own. While there's nothing inherently wrong with that concept, let's not talk about the hidden text, it gets so boring and repetitive after you've played all of these fan games for a while. I basically have the intro cutscene for the House chapter engraved in my head due to all the fan games that have a similar intro to it. Although games like Piggy But 100 Players or Piggy But Nostalgia have a genuine reason for why they copy the main Piggy game, since that's their whole premise, these other fan games don't have much of a reason to stick with the normal Piggy storyline and copy the same exact chapter order. I get that some of these games may have a reason to do this, like the Piggy Insane series is just the normal Piggy chapters but the difficulties ramped up, or how Piggy Rebooted is simply just all of the chapters in the main Piggy game but stylized. I still find it boring, however, when I'm basically playing a Control-C, Control-V of the main Piggy game. It makes these Piggy fan games so predictable, because I can easily tell what the next chapter of the game is going to be. Like, oh, if this game started off with Chapter 1 House, I can obviously predict that Chapter 2 is going to be Station, since guess what? Chapter 2 of Piggy is Station, and the fan game is going straight off of the original pre-existing story. Let's take Piggy the Result of Isolation, for example. Was there really a reason for Georgie in the game to go from the house to the station to the gallery to the forest exactly like how the player in the main game does it? I mean, the whole premise of the Result of Isolation is that Georgie is basically trapped in an isolated world where he has almost no one and is wandering in an apocalyptic world. There was almost no reason for Georgie to even go to a gallery like the player did in the main game. It's just that the story basically forced Georgie to visit a gallery so that it followed a very similar story to the main game. Why? At least the main Piggy game had a reason why the player was at a gallery in the middle of an apocalypse, since they ran out of gas in the car. Why would Georgie go to a gallery in an apocalypse is beyond me. Sounds like some lazy plot convenience to me. Other games like Rebooted or the Insane series take a very similar approach to the main Piggy game, having the same chapter order with a story that's modified just a tad. I get that they're fan games, but it gets really dull and predictable after a while. In my honest opinion, I simply don't like it. I feel like a way Piggy fan game developers could prevent this is simply to do more with the concept. If you're going to just take the pre-existing maps of the main Piggy game, ramp up the story. Maybe make it new and more interesting to follow, even if it takes place in a house, then a station, and then a gallery. Like, take Piggy's Miserability, for example. Even though the game takes place in pre-existing maps from the main Piggy game, the story is ramped up and is a lot more interesting, and has a bunch of new and different characters in just 2 chapters at the time I'm making this video. And it even follows a similar premise to the main game story, yet it's able to stray away from that by utilizing mid-game cutscenes, characters, bosses, and overall unique events. You could even just create a completely different fan game that doesn't even contain any of the pre-existing maps or stories from the main Piggy game. Fan games such as Piggy Tales from the Crevice and the Piggy Backrooms have Piggy tied to them, but they don't start off their fan game with the house and basically copy the story of the main game. They take the Piggy concept and shape it into their own mold, which I can heavily respect. Games like Anicide and Lonely 2 are barely even tied to Piggy, but are just inspired by the game's premise, hence why they don't have a Piggy : in front of their names. If you want to follow the same Piggy storyline and utilize the same pre-existing maps, then at least make something extraordinary out of it, like Piggy Branched Realities. I love how they make each chapter 10 times better than the original from Piggy. They take the same pre-existing map and give it the craziest makeover. They make what-if scenarios out of the main Piggy storyline, and the Wizard Watch Studios team makes it work as its own game. A true Piggy fan game, if you ask me. Now, this next opinion about Piggy fan games is more personal. As of 2022 to 2023, I've started to gain this stressed out feeling towards Piggy fan games. Almost as if it would mentally drain me to even play a new chapter from a fan game, let alone beat the chapter. This was during a time where I would genuinely force myself to play fan games for videos, which I fortunately don't do anymore. However, looking back, I've pointed out some things that may have made me reach my breaking point on some of these fan games. Let's start off with something simple. The timer. You know, the timer. That 10-minute timer at the top of your screen to complete the map, and if you don't, your run ends and you have to restart from the beginning. I think you could kind of see where I'm going. I do not like the timer, especially in single-player fan games. I understand why the main Piggy game and multiplayer fan games have a timer, so that if you die, you're not waiting on 1 or 2 people running around the map who don't know what they're doing. If you know how to complete a map, 10 minutes is an abundance of time. This gives these multiplayer Piggy games a sort of round-based gameplay feel, where you either all work as a team and complete the map before the timer, or you have no idea what you're doing and you run the timer out. That way, you're not sitting in spectate mode or running around the map forever, which can make things boring in a multiplayer environment. I feel this is the idea that the main Piggy game was trying to offer. However, when you take this timer into a single-player fan game, it makes no sense. Like, you're the only one in the game. There's no other people waiting on you, no people spectating you, no people working with you. It's just you. Why do we need a 10-minute timer on top of the screen? Can't you just let that one player explore the map? Making a single-player fan game and going, okay, here's a bunch of puzzles, doors, and items you have to unlock and solve. The pressure's all on you. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. You only have 10 minutes to do them all. Go. No, this is not how it works in my opinion. Take a game that's not even related to Piggy at all, yet similar. Poppy Playtime. Poppy Playtime is single player. All of the chapters are single player, but you don't see a 10-minute timer on the top of your screen to complete the map. Piggy is similar to Poppy Playtime though. They're both mascot horror games trying to be scary. They're both horror games where you explore a certain area or place and solve puzzles, collect items, and eventually find some sort of escape. Poppy Playtime allows for the player to explore and figure out how to solve the intricate puzzles laid ahead of them. It doesn't pressure the player with a 10-minute, 15-minute, or any sort of timer at all. It just lets the player play the game at their own pace. When it comes to Piggy fan games, however, that's not the case. It feels like as if you don't have time to explore or experiment like you do in Poppy Playtime. Instead, you're running around the map, stressing about some yellow key because there's 2 minutes left. Like, does it hurt to let the player take their time and explore? I feel if solo player fan games got rid of the timer, the game in general would be more fun to play. It would feel like the player's actually exploring and learning without an exterior force pressuring them to rush everything. Take the Piggy Backrooms, for example. It doesn't force the player to complete the map in a rushed manner. Even though you could complete Chapter 0 of the game at a pace faster than 10 to 15 minutes, the game allows you to actually explore and learn as you pace forwards. I feel like this is how single-player fan games should treat its players, with no stupid timer, and instead letting the player explore and roam freely within the map and slowly figure out how to complete it. A 10-minute timer just doesn't allow that. Now, some single-player games have a reason for a timer. Like the Insane series uses it as a way to put pressure on the player, because the only thing Insane series is good at is making me rip the hair out of my own scalp! Where was I? Oh yeah, the timer. This is a simple fix. Just get rid of the timer. In my honest opinion, it will make the game more fun and it will likely increase playtime on the game since players will be intrigued to continue exploring instead of running the timer out and having to restart all the way from the beginning, which can cause them to quit after just one run. This brings me to my next point for stress-inducing factors for fan games: the likeliness of replaying after a round. Rage quitting is such a common thing I do in fan games, some more than others. Floor one, oh my... No! And one reason for why is my motivation to play another round. Let's take the Piggy Backrooms again. The game doesn't utilize a 10-minute timer to make players complete the chapter, and it has checkpoints. I feel like checkpoints are really important, especially in single-player fan games, since it can sometimes be a hassle to die and restart the entire chapter. Like I've stated before, single-player games are all on you. There's no reason for a timer to exist when it's only you doing the work. Single-player fan games should work at your own self-pace, and you should have the chance to have some sort of checkpoint to save your progress. The Piggy Backrooms has 3 checkpoints, I believe. Nothing too crazy. There's an option to get rid of your progress if you want to restart the game, but if you die, you can get the chance to respawn at a checkpoint, which saves a bunch of time. Once you get rid of the 10-minute timer format of single-player fan games, you can easily make the game last longer and include checkpoints throughout the game. It all sort of comes together in a way. You make the game last longer, get rid of the timer because of that, and add checkpoints so you don't have to restart the entire game. Now for my final opinion of Piggy fan games. This isn't really one that I expect developers to implement, since it's more of a personal preference rather than something constructive. I like multiplayer fan games over single player ones. I feel like I've made that really obvious in what I've yapped about prior. I saw this tweet from Xavier the other day, the creator of Piggy the Robotic Apocalypse, who asked if he should make the game multiplayer. I responded basically saying yes, since I feel like this is how Piggy fan games should truly be. Piggy, the main game, started off as a multiplayer game. Other games that are Piggy inspired, such as Puppet, Bacon, or Kitty, also took this whole round-based multiplayer mascot horror concept and made it their own thing. Piggy was always meant to be a game to enjoy with other people. Hell, the original reason for Mini2 even creating Piggy was to make a little troll game for his friends. There's a special charm when you get to play a game with other people, and I don't know how to explain it. Not just in Roblox Piggy, but other Roblox games, and even games outside of Roblox. When I play a Piggy fan game that is single player, that charm just fades away. You're just on your own, left alone with your own thoughts. Each failed attempt just feels like a step back from victory. I get that Piggy is meant to be a horror game, so fan games being single player help add to the horror factor, but I feel like Piggy was always meant to bring people together. Piggy was always meant to be enjoyed with a group rather than going solo. When you fail around and you're playing with other people, it's easier to bounce back and play another round of the game rather than playing by yourself. I feel like it's basic psychology. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, since most single-player fan games were scripted specifically to be single-player, and altering them to be multiplayer would be a difficult task. I just wish that fan games that are single-player could have a separate game, or an option to play it with other people. Like, Imagine a multiplayer version of the Piggy Backrooms, or Piggy Unstable Reality, or even Piggy's Miserability. I feel like if you make any single player fan game multiplayer, it can make it 10 times more interesting at the very least. I know the chances of those fan games ever becoming multiplayer are very low. Hopefully in the future, we can get more multiplayer fan games. Piggy fan games are a huge part of the Piggy community and fandom. Without fan games, Piggy would have died out completely during the content droughts for the main game. These fan games have built a community with a bunch of talented developers and have brought people together. I'll never forget that break in between Book 1 and Book 2 where games like APRP were popping off since people were intrigued on what would happen next for Piggy. Despite all of the little pet peeves I have with these fan games, I'm still very thankful for their existence since I wouldn't be here making this video today. I owe so much to these fan games till this very day, and they are the reason why I'm even on the map, why my dumb videos even appeared on people's recommended pages. The Piggy community is still very strong today, and it's been nearly 5 years since the main game was created. Half a decade later, there are still people announcing projects on releasing fan games, and the community is still hyped for their releases. Minitoon is even hiring some of these fan game developers, mainly from Piggy Branch Realities, to work on his main game. People like Epic Tank, Mia's Void, Luniona, and more developers that are masterminds behind fan games now have the privilege to work on the main Piggy game. Just proving how big fan games have become, even Minitoon has started to realize how big of a potential they have. Not only hiring people that work on fan games, but working with these developers to create new ones like Piggy Misfits or Pig 64. I'm sure the Piggy community will be striving for another 5 years. Even if Piggy isn't one of the top games like Dress to Impress or Brookhaven, what truly matters is that there's an awesome community behind Piggy. A community that has always been passionate about creating for 5 years and still counting.